Hello, everyone. We are joined this afternoon by some colleagues from the GovUK team, and we're going to be looking at the new One Login process, which is going to be rolling out, well, is already rolling out, in fact, and therefore really important for community organisations and colleagues to be able to support all different types of users in being able to access a wide range of different government services. My name's Elizabeth. I'm the Chief Executive of the Digital Poverty Alliance. And just quickly, Leanne, could I ask you to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Leanne Williams. I am a strategy, policy and engagement advisor within the Digital Identity Directorate at the Government Digital Service. So working very closely on the One Login programme.
Fantastic. And Sam?
Hi everybody, I'm San Gopalakrishnan, Digital Strategy Lead in the same team as Liam.
Perfect. Great to have you both with us. We've also got lots of people joining us live online today. If you are joining us live, please do put in the chat your name, which organisation you're representing, whereabouts in the country, or indeed further afield you may be today. We're going to have quite a bit of time for Q&A and a bit of a conversation after the set presentation. So there is a Q&A button down at the bottom of the screen. Please do pop any questions in there, anything as it comes up, and then we'd love to take those questions towards the end of today's session. I think we can get right into it. So I'm going to invite Leanne to share her screen. She's got a presentation all ready to go to tell us lots more about what this means for people and organisations.
Brilliant. Can I just check, Elizabeth, that you can see that?
All good.
Excellent. So, hi everyone. My name is Leanne, and I'm a strategy, policy and engagement advisor here in the gov.uk One Login team. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit today about our sort of mission to make it easier for the public to access government services online, a little bit about how One Login works, and some of the ways that you can support your communities as well in getting started with One Login. So to start us off, I'll just talk about our mission. So One Login's mission is to act as the new sort of straightforward, secure way to access a range of government services online. Our aim is to replace the previous sort of landscape of siloed and duplicative sign-in and identity proofing methods. We want to provide one front door for connected services that will continue to be operated by departments across government. So at the moment, there are over 44 ways that you can prove your identity, with 190 different types of accounts across government. So as I'm sure you can sort of appreciate, it can be quite frustrating for users and also quite inefficient for government. So by reducing duplication and consolidating services, the aim is that we'll save taxpayer money and we'll also standardise the process to make it easier for more people to access services online, and we'll also reduce our reliance on slow and sort of expensive offline channels. And when we reach our ambition, One Login will be the way that the public accesses the services that they use. So whether that's universal credit or personal tax, or whether they want to apply for an apprenticeship, it will be sort of the one-stop shop for them, and a real sort of step change in the way people interact with government services. So on this slide, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the services we've got onboarded and a few sort of statistics. So the One Login system is fully operational. Users are already able to set up an account, sign in, and then prove and reuse their identity in order to access an initial set of 79 and growing government services. Users can also get the support that they need from our contact centre, which includes access through a web chat function, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So as I mentioned, there's 79 government services now live on gov.uk One Login, and the programme is on track to onboard over 100 services by the end of 2025. Some major services, such as the DVLA and also Companies House, have already started onboarding to One Login, and preparations are also underway for there to be access to HMRC online services as well. And sort of since moving to OneLogin, the average time it takes for a user to submit a basic DBS check is down by 6 minutes. And users are also more likely to be able to successfully verify their identity during the process, which means that more users have been able to successfully submit a DBS check. And as you can see from the slide, we've got over 10.4 million people who've proven their identity through OneLogin so far. And our OneLogin ID checking app has been downloaded more than 14.7 million times. And the app has a rating of 4.7 on both the Google and Apple app stores. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit more about what gov.uk OneLogin is aiming to achieve. So we want to create a step change in the user experience, so moving away from multiple logins to one single sign-on service for central government. So by providing a single consistent way to log in and access government services, we'll remove the need to remember multiple passwords, which will make it quicker and easier for people. And by enabling people to prove their identity once and then reuse it to access other services, we will save citizens time and also put a stop to government having to ask people for the same information multiple times. So we also want to make identity verification more inclusive for users as well, by providing a range of routes for people to prove their identity. So by broadening the range of documents and evidence that people can use to prove who they are, we will ensure that those who maybe don't have traditional ID documents, such as passports and driving licenses, can still be brought into this digital channel. And we're also providing sort of assisted digital and face-to-face options for those that need them. So whether it's someone with low digital confidence or someone who's struggling to sort of access a device, we're hoping these methods will help them. And as well as sort of benefits to the public, all of this leads to reducing costs and increasing government efficiency overall. So OneLogin is helping to eliminate the need to build and run multiple systems across government. And this essentially makes it easier for people and also reduces our reliance on other sort of various systems as well. And another benefit of OneLogin is that it's helping us to reduce instances of identity fraud and identity-enabled crimes. So through joining up data across government departments, we can better understand patterns and share intelligence. And we'll also be increasing the consistency of identity checks by adopting industry standard best practices across services. And also the advanced technology that we're using helps us to spot patterns and share insights as well. So, despite all of these benefits that I've mentioned, we know through conducting user research that there are a number of barriers for some people in accessing OneLogin. So in order to sort of develop inclusive and accessible services, the Government Digital Service, which the OneLogin is sort of sits within, ensures all of its user research includes a third of participants with some form of disability. So that's physical, cognitive, learning, or neurological. And this has been the case for all user research on OneLogin. And the findings from this research have informed the design decisions of the system. And capturing the experience of participants with a spectrum of disabilities also helps to ensure our solution works for as many people as possible. But despite this, we do know that not everyone has all the documents. They don't necessarily have the digital skills or the credit history to access or instantly perform tasks online. So there are lots of other things we're doing as well to try and break down some of these barriers. So we're continuing to conduct user research to better understand audiences. We're also looking to expand the evidence types that we can accept and also the access methods to getting a OneLogin. And we're also working with the rest of the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, for which Government Digital Service sort of sits within, and beyond as well into wider government to improve inclusion. So a few examples of this would be widening broadband access and also skills and training and having better sort of access to devices for people who maybe don't have them. So I'll talk you through the 4 ways that we currently have for citizens to prove their identity. So I've already mentioned the ID checking app, which is our most popular route at the moment, with around 92 to 93% of people who've used OneLogin so far being able to successfully complete the app journey. So this allows a user who is in possession of a smartphone and a photo ID to prove their identity using the app. And I will share a little bit more about the process of setting up an account and also using the app in the next few slides. We also have a web-based route. So this is for anyone who can't use the app for any reason. So our web route involves a document check. So it will accept photo and no photo ID, which is then validated with an authoritative source. Using some knowledge-based verification questions, which will be based on the user's credit history with one of the major credit reference agencies. And these questions allow us to check that the claimed identity belongs to the person who's completing the check. We also have a face-to-face route. So this is to support anyone who has maybe low digital confidence or skills. So that we have a partnership with the UK Post Office. So with this route, users are still required to start the journey online to create their OneLogin account, but then they can take their identity documents to a post office to carry out the ID verification in person. And then finally, we also have, for the 7% of people who we know don't have a photo ID, we have a web-based no photo route, which allows users to prove their identity using a tax record check, bank account check, and knowledge-based verification questions. Also, I'm just going to go back one slide. I also wanted to just mention that to further improve accessibility, we're also developing an alternative method that will enable users to verify their identity by sort of logging securely into their bank account. And we're also working with the Department for Work and Pensions to enable knowledge-based verification checks for those who receive benefits as well. So now I'll move us on to the login page. So on this slide, you can see what the create.gov.uk OneLogin and sign-in page looks like. So setting up the account provides an authentication service, which gives us confidence that a returning user is the person who set up the account. And then you can see some of the steps here for what people need to do in order to set up their secure account. So for most users, it should hopefully be a pretty straightforward process. They will need to provide an email address. We'll then send a code to that address to check that they have access to it. And then they can go ahead and create a password, which they can use whenever they want to sign in. And then an important step is to set up 2-factor authentication for the account as well. So this could be via a text message, so where the user opts to receive a one-time passcode to their mobile phone each time they log in. They can also use an authenticator app, so they can download the app and then they will receive a prompt via their smartphone. And then once they've done that, the account is ready to go. So some services also need to know who the user is so they can access the services. This might be because the user is claiming a benefit or a tax refund, and we need to know that the money is going to be going to the right person. So these services will require identity verification as well as setting up the initial account. So I'm just going to play a short video now, which will show you how this works.
In order to verify the user's identity, they will need to open their passport to the photo page and position it inside the frame until the frame turns green. Once that is completed, it's time to scan the chip in the passport. All newer UK passports and many non-UK passports contain a chip storing document details and a copy of the passport photo. This is the most secure way of checking a passport. The user scans the chip by placing the phone onto the top of the passport so they are touching. The passport details are read from the chip, and cryptographic checks are used to confirm the passport is genuine and that none of the details have been changed. Once the scan is complete, the user will be able to see their details on screen. Next, the user will scan their face using their selfie camera. The app will compare the user's face to the photo from the passport and prove whether the user is who they say they are. This selfie check also confirms that there's a real person behind the camera and not someone holding up a photo. The user will have now successfully matched their identity to their passport details. In order to verify the user's identity,
Apologies, it was not letting me move the slide on them for some reason. So hopefully that helped to bring it to life a little bit. This slide here just talks a little bit again about the app, and you can see from the reviews here that the app has sort of maintained high ratings in the Google and Apple app stores, and it is rare that government tech gets such high ratings in the app stores and put such positive reviews. So it's something we're quite proud of, and also sort of a mark that the step change in user experience we're seeking to drive is happening. And then you can see on this slide here the range of evidence citizens can use at the moment to prove their identity. And as I mentioned earlier, we're always looking at different ways to expand these evidence types that we can accept. And we do have a helpers guide as well available, which is on gov.uk for anyone who wants to assist others in using OneLogin. And this guide as well includes advice on downloading and using the app. So some of the information that was just in that video. OneLogin users can also access an account dashboard. So this shows a record of the services they have used previously, and then it can act as a sort of one-stop shop where people can access their services quickly and easily. Longer term as well, we do have the potential to offer an increasingly personalised service for the user, with tailored notifications and suggested content, if that is something that they choose to opt into. So finally, I'm going to just talk through some of the support that we offer for users. So OneLogin is supported 24/7 for any users who are a bit less confident online or maybe get stuck along the way when trying to sort of go through the process. And the different routes available to report issues vary depending on when the user wants to report it. So there is a web form, a web chat, and a contact centre chatbot, which are all available 24/7. And in addition to that, we also have from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday. Users have the option to speak to an agent, and they can do this either by contacting the call centre directly, or this may also happen if someone's got in touch via the web chat. And it needs to be escalated because it might be perhaps a bit more of a complex issue, and they need to speak to someone. And within the contact centre, the user satisfaction score is 85%, and the average speed of answer on calls is 7 seconds. We also have some other resources and support on offer to audiences like yourselves who may want to help someone in accessing OneLogin or help us raise awareness of the system. So we have a toolkit that we've developed which can be used by organisations to help spread the word about OneLogin. So this includes key messages. It also includes some suggested social media posts and website or newsletter content that you can use and sort of tailor for your audiences. And we'll also be working with the Digital Poverty Alliance to make this available to you after the webinar today. We're also working on a step-by-step guide as well, which will be helpful for organisations and other key stakeholders to use in order to raise awareness with their audiences and also help sort of take people through the OneLogin programme, OneLogin account easily. So this isn't quite ready yet, but it should be available soon. So we can make some arrangements to share this once available. And then there's also the helpers guide that I mentioned earlier, which can be used by anyone who may need to assist someone else with using OneLogin. So, for example, they may have low digital confidence, or they might not have access to their own device. So that guide just takes people through the process, explains sort of what they can help someone with, what they can't help someone with. And that's it. Thank you very much for having me speak today. And yeah, I'll pass back over to Elizabeth and we can start the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Leanne, for taking us through that. I think before we dive into some of the questions that are starting to come in, and we have plenty of time for Q&A today. Leanne's been very, very concise, so do drop lots of questions into the chat. We'd love to hear them. Probably one of the big questions that's really going to be top of mind for a lot of the people on the call today is around the support for people who don't have access to a device. And I'd say that probably splits into a couple of different pieces. One is around that sort of face-to-face service that you can access at the post office, and I think it would be helpful to maybe hear a bit more about that. And then also thinking about MFA, multi-factor authentication. If you don't have a smartphone, what's your workaround for some of that? So that would be great maybe to hear a bit more on those areas.
Yeah, sure. So so for anyone who doesn't have a smartphone, that is the sort of web route and the face-to-face routes which I mentioned. So people are able to set up an account in that way. And the post office option, obviously, it does still involve the digital element in terms of setting up the initial account, but it does mean that if they feel, a little bit less confident, they can sort of go into branch, speak to a person who can then verify their documents in person. And I'm just going to see if San, did you have anything else that you would want to add to that?
Yeah, we also have a helpers guide that's published online that we're happy to share with after this as well. So that basically gives a bit of set of guidance on, like, for example, if I were to help Leanne set up a gov.uk one login, these are things that I can do to help, but not act on Leanne's behalf. So it does talk about very clear guidance on how you can do that. We're happy to share with you after that as well.
Amazing. And I feel like this really nicely links into a question that we've had from Lisa, which is, can I use an email or mobile number for more than one person? So, for example, if I'm helping elderly parents, can they back off the same mobile and email address?
I'll have to get back to you on that if that's okay. But if I'm not mistaken, you do have to use a different email address. But I will confirm that with you in writing after this.
And I feel like there are helpful little there's helpful hints that actually we might be able to collaborate on this around actually how you can use the same email address and use a plus sign to make that appear like a separate email address, and that can be a really good way of being able to use the same details but slightly tweak it so it ends up working for everybody, but it's a bit of a hack. It's a bit of a get round. Lisa has also asked, just one on her questions, if you already have a government gateway account, do you need to re-register? Now, I think you do, but over to the experts.
Yes, so we are not at that point of getting HMRC services onboarded to OneLogin yet. Obviously, HMRC have a lot of services. They already have government gateways, so we're working very closely with the team on that, because obviously there's quite a lot of complexity to it. But yes, users will need to register to use OneLogin once HTML services are onboarded. But once they've gone through that process, that will be it. They'll be able to reuse their identity across a range of services.
Fantastic. And somebody's also asked, does the ID check cost any money?
No.
Nice, easy answer.
Yeah, it's free. OneLogin is free to use for all users. So yeah, you don't need to pay.
Fantastic.
Important thing. I should probably actually add that to the presentation somewhere.
You don't get much for free, so this is always good news. And I guess what's really important here is OneLogin is bringing something new, which if you are online and you feel comfortable and confident being able to use it, then actually it can add lots of benefit. But if you're not online, this I don't think is going to take away the existing routes that people would use to verify their identity at the moment?
No, so all the services that we're working with, as we sort of gradually onboard services to One Login, they are we are working with them so they can provide an alternative route as well for anyone who may have some barriers to using sort of technology. So that will be the service itself that will develop that alternative route. But yeah, that will be there as well.
And I think that's really important for people who don't have a device, they don't have an email address, they don't feel comfortable using it, they don't have access, as Kirsty's brought up, you know, post offices might be miles and miles away, so actually they'd rather keep going with the existing. That is absolutely crucial, that it's not going to be something is turned off and now you can only get online. An interesting question from Andrea, which is there any intention of integrating this with the NHS app? Or was this a bit of a blue sky idea?
I'll take that. There are no plans at the moment for that, but we will keep in touch. We do work closely with the NHS login. So, you know, if there are any plans to do that, we'll get in touch.
Okay, fantastic. Linda has asked, and actually we've got a few accessibility advocates on the call today. This is great. She says, is the form screen readable and voice to text possible for those with visual impairments or those who can't read?
So we do have an accessibility statement on our website that explains sort of the accessibility sort of requirements that we follow. So the government digital service sort of is committed to making One Login as accessible as possible. It is sort of partially compliant at the moment with the Web Content Accessibility Guidance version 2.2. And there are some details in that around which parts of the system are currently not compliant. So those who use screen readers are able to listen to most of the content in gov.uk One Login, including via some of the most recent versions of JAWS, MVDA and VoiceOver. But yeah, there is more details about the specifics in the accessibility statement, which I can share.
I think that would be really helpful to share, actually. And I have to say, something that I just think from a user experience perspective is really important is that there is the alternative to using the app. There's the web page as well. And certainly in a lot of the conversations we have with older people, being able to use a full-size screen alone is really, really important. So that is fantastic to see that that's something that's come through from an early recommendation. Of course, there's also, you know, this is going to be holding a lot of data. So security is going to be really important within this new system. What is maybe the single most important security feature that users should be aware of?
Yep, so I can take that one. So so it's important to note here that gov.uk One Login follows the highest security standards for government and private sector services. So we have a threat intelligence and counter fraud team, which ensures that product features are counter fraud by design, and that the system is proactively monitored as well to investigate and intercept any fraudulent activity. And we're also looking to expand that capability as well, working across government to develop a shared signals agreement. And this is where the government digital service and other government services will exchange information about potential or proven identity fraud to combat fraud against public services. So yeah, I would say that is the sort of key point that I wanted to make there. Feel free to add anything, Sam, if there's anything else you think would be good.
Fantastic. And we've got a few questions around sort of what else might be possible on there. So, for example, our local authority login is going to potentially move over to this.
I'm happy to take that. We are planning to undertake a technical discovery. So we're planning to do that and engage with local authorities sometime end of the year. So to see what kind of requirements that we require, what would they like to see from One Login, and if One Login is suitable for what they want to use. So we'll engage with them as well around that. Then, yeah. Just to get back to you, Elizabeth, on the question that I believe Lisa asked around the different emails and phone numbers. So different emails, it has to be different emails. So we can go with the route that you mentioned earlier, Elizabeth, but it can be the same phone number for 2FA. But I also wanted to highlight that we also allow authenticator apps to do that. That's available, whichever that's of your choice.
Fantastic. Lovely. And thank you for checking into that so quickly, Sam, live and as it happens. Returning to that sort of theme of other things that might end up on one login. Franklin has asked, how could an organisation approach exploring one login as a method to access their own customer portal login? Or is that not something that's going to be available or yet?
One login is currently for central government services, and as I said, we're looking into expanding it to public sector services, but there are no plans for private sector companies as of yet.
Yeah, I love that we're getting the big ideas. This is great. And Jeff has asked a couple of questions. So question one is the chat service, is that AI? Or is that a web-based chat where you're talking to a person?
So it is AI. There is an AI chat, but depending on what the issue is, if, for instance, if someone has a query that is, it's quite a simple solution to solve. In some instances, the AI web chat would be able to resolve that query. If not, it would then be sort of escalated through to our contact center, which would be sort of a live agent, so a person. So we have some data that I've seen from our contact center suggests that quite a lot of the sort of more minor issues can be solved by the web chat, but we also need the people there in order to deal with some of those more complex issues as well.
Absolutely. Steve has asked a question. I think it's really nicely framed. So we've established that if you're not online, there'll be alternative routes, and that is incredibly important for the kinds of people that we and many of our audience here today or listening later are working with. However, Steve says, I think it's more of a question of how someone who is digitally isolated can access key services. Are we hoping that people will gravitate towards libraries and digital hubs? This is a solution that's not universally ideal, as access points can vary widely through the country. So are those alternative routes going to be clearly signposted and adequately staffed to ensure that digitally excluded people are not disproportionately disadvantaged? So I think this is mainly sort of around the comms of how people can access those non-digital, non-app based services.
So the alternative routes to one login, that is for the sort of individual government services to sort of decide what that process will be and how that is communicated. But we are sort of working very closely with services, so it's certainly something we can sort of raise to them as well around the importance of making sure their comms signpost to those different options very very clearly. So yeah, that's something we can feed back.
Fantastic. And I feel very sure that there's a lot of people here who would be really happy to help in terms of spreading some of that information and working with departments to actually get that information out there. And if people are doing, then they're going through this process right now and they hit that problem, what is the best thing community organisations can be doing to help people access the support that they need? What's kind of the hope from your team, from our sector?
The hope is that through sort of some of the support resources that we're able to provide, so the toolkit that I mentioned, which has sort of been developed, with organisations like Digital Poverty Alliance in mind, so that you can work with any communities that you work with that may have some digital barriers to be able to talk them through the process and sort of support them and making sure that those alternative routes such as the post office route are sort of widely known as well, so that if people do sort of start I guess being a little bit worried about this, or feeling that they are going to be blocked from services in any way, that they have all the information that they need. It's also important about signposting them to the support that they can find themselves, so through the contact centre, through our sort of, we've got a contact us page on gov.uk that we can share the link to as well, like making sure people know who they can get in contact with if they do sort of try and get started in the process and they get stuck somewhere along the way. That's what the contact centre is there for. And also that helpers guide that we mentioned a couple of times as well, making sure that the communities you work with are aware of that as well, aware of what other people can do in order to assist someone if they really are sort of finding it quite challenging to access one login. They are able to get someone to help them as well.
And I think that helpers guide is going to be really important, because we've had another question through about, is there a specific process for people with power of attorney? Is that the kind of thing that's going to be covered in that guide?
So power of attorney is something that we are sort of working on at the moment. So it's not part of the helpers guide at the moment, but it's something that's very much on our radar, and we're sort of working on that in the background at the moment.
Okay. And of course, with scams and cybersecurity very, very front of mind for so many people at the moment, we've had a question through: what if someone steals my online identity without me being aware of it? So are there any kind of notifications that come through in regard to the fact that this person suddenly might have a one login account, so that they could be informed that that was the case and take action if it wasn't them who'd set that up?
So the system itself is sort of very, very, very secure, and the way that it has been set up is to basically prevent as much as possible that happening. So the ID verification process itself is quite stringent. So there are fraud checks that happen sort of in the background, whether you're using the app route or one of the other routes. So that is all in place to protect someone from that happening. Hopefully that won't happen. There's also the shared signals that I was talking about earlier. So we're working with other government departments to be able to share any sort of data with them and them with us about anything that we need to be aware of in terms of fraudulent activity, so that we are hopefully sort of that one step ahead as well, so we can prevent those kind of situations from happening.
I feel sure that you will have done a lot of work with the National Cybersecurity Centre to make sure that all of this has been really thoroughly checked into, because yes, otherwise it would be asking for this kind of problem. But I know there's been a lot of work has gone into that.
Yes, we've been working with them and still do work with them very closely.
Amazing. You did touch there on the shared signals though. Are there any rules around how the different data can be used? So if I log in on my driving license kind of side, will HMRC be checking what I'm doing?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So when you sign in to prove your identity with One Login, we will sort of send that online government service that you're trying to access some information, but we won't be sharing any information further than that. It'll only be shared with the government service that you're trying to access. So the information that we may need to share, so with the service that you're trying to access, is the result of your identity check to ensure that the person that's trying to claim support through the service is the person they say they are. If someone has failed the identity check for any reason, we may need to let the service know that. And any information that enables the government service to sort of match you against their records as well. But yeah, that data will not be shared with any sort of services that you're not trying to claim help from.
Said it before, I'll say it again. I think we imagine that things people are far more interested in us than they actually are, and they're not actually necessarily all sitting there checking, cross-checking everything. Could you say a little bit more about the knowledge-based test questions, Leanne, that you mentioned? Because particularly for people who don't have a passport or driving license, they don't have a good credit score, this is exactly why you've created these questions. How does that actually work? What do they look like?
Yes, so the security questions will sort of be based on information that is held by you by one of the major credit reference agencies. So if for instance, people who maybe don't have that much credit history, there may be a situation where questions can't be generated for that individual if the credit agency doesn't hold enough information about that person. But it will be sort of specific questions that only the person who sort of is trying to go through the check would be able to answer. So they are quite specific questions that only you should be able to answer, basically.
Fantastic. And one of our audience has asked, what happens if the smartphone that you've set this up on is stolen? What's the risk there?
You might want to add to this, Sam, but I was going to say that obviously there's a lot of protection inbuilt into your smartphone anyway. So if your smartphone is stolen, it would require someone to have your passcode, or a lot of people have Face ID enabled now as well. So it would be quite very difficult for someone to bypass the sort of security that already exists in modern smartphones. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that, Sam.
But yeah, I was also going to say, if in the unfortunate event it does happen, you can also contact the contact center to let them know, so they can then take action there. Whether it's to delete your account, suspend it, or whatever you want. There is also ways to report suspicious activity in the self-service part of your account as well that you can do that. But the easiest route is contact center.
And that probably is a really important point, in the same way that if your phone was stolen and you were concerned about your bank account, you'd contact your bank. In that same order of things that you're going to have to follow up on, that's one that you need to remember to do. And Gwyneth has asked, will the guidance and indeed the service be available in languages other than English?
So it is available in English and Welsh. The system everything will be translated into Welsh. They are the only languages that One Login will be available in. However, I know that the contact centre does have sort of language help as well. So if someone was to get in touch with the contact centre and they didn't speak English or Welsh, they do have a language service that they can put people in touch with as well.
Yeah, that's okay. And Maria has asked, how are you aligning this with the Digital Inclusion Action Plan, which of course all sits under DCIT as well? And is there provision in place to support digitally excluded people in future years?
I was going to say I might have to come back to you with sort of more specifics on that question. We are working with the wider Department of Science, Innovation and Technology on the sort of various things that are part of the digital inclusion plan. So some of the stuff I mentioned earlier around broadband access, that is sort of not something GDS is specifically looking at, but wider DCIT is. So, but yeah, I'll have to come back to you on the specifics of that, I'm afraid. But good question, thank you.
But just to add as well, is one of the main reasons why the post office route was introduced is making sure that One Login is as inclusive as it is as possible. And we are continually improving the experience for users to make sure that that is the case. But we are very happy to get some feedback off you if there's anything that you would like to share, ways that we can improve. We're more than happy to hear that.
And what I would certainly say is, having previously been involved in, as a co-chair, the One Login inclusion and privacy advocacy group, it was a catchy name, I think we can all agree. It's been really good to see some of the recommendations that group made actually being picked up. And I think the fact that we're having this session here today and we're actually really kind of trying to drill into some of the alternatives, some of where people can get help, the fact that there is the helper's guide. A lot of this shows that actually there is that thought, but of course there's always going to be room for improvement with anything. And I'm sure everyone's really interested in actually gathering practical examples of what that might look like. Fantastic. I'm just having a quick look to see if there are any further questions, but I think we may have covered everything. So how can people get more information if they're watching this now and going, this is going to be really relevant and really important for lots of people who use our services? We're probably going to have lots of questions coming through. What's the next step for these people?
So I can share in the chat the contact us page, which is on gov.uk. So that includes a lot of different ways in which people can get in touch. I can also obviously we're working closely with you, Elizabeth, and the Digital Poverty Alliance. So I know this webinar is going to be made available afterwards. So we'll work with you as well to ensure that that you've got the toolkit, and we can share an email address as well. If people are particularly interested in finding out a bit more, or are interested in any other support, we can sort of make that available to you as well.
Brilliant. We have had a flurry of questions because there's nothing like saying we're finishing up to bring out the last round of questions, but I think some of these will be fairly quick to respond to. So is this going to be available at all the post offices, including the ones that are in little shops? I think mine locally is in a Morrison's. Is this wide open or just the sort of larger dedicated post offices?
I may have to come back to you on that one, Elizabeth. I believe it's all post offices. Sam's nodding. So, but yeah, we can follow up and just double check on that, because it's a good point. There are sort of various different versions of post offices now in Morrison's and other sort of smaller shops. So yeah, we can go away and get back to you on that.
Fantastic. Other supermarkets are indeed available. And actually Steve has made a suggestion, because we are all about collaboration, that of course putting that service in council offices might be a really interesting thing to consider, because those council services do tend to be more spread out. Paul has asked whether the pension service is going to pick up one login. Is that on the roadmap, or is that yet to be unveiled?
I believe so. So it'll be all central government services that will be onboarding to one login. But yeah, it's a sort of bit for further down on the roadmap for now.
Fantastic. Okay. And I guess actually sort of following on from that, because in reflecting on older people, and I think this is more of a kind of really important sum up around alternative services, is certainly that as the Digital Poverty Alliance, we're going to be really keen to continue working with DSIT, with this team, and with a variety of other government departments and government services around what those alternative routes are going to look like, because certainly we at the DPA recognise that actually a digital version is not going to be right for everybody, and there's going to be lots of people who may be older, who may have additional needs, who may be living in poverty and just fundamentally unable to afford a smartphone or any other kind of device or connectivity. And those hard copy, paper-based, face-to-face, phone-based, these services are going to be absolutely vital. So one login, I think, is incredibly convenient for a lot of people, and I think it's a great way of people also being able to build up some digital confidence and being able to use a service that's going to be really, really relevant to them. But for all of those people who are truly living in digital poverty, those alternative routes are going to be incredibly important. So I think that is going to be a bit of a key role that the DPA can play in making sure that the word is out there around what those look like and how you access those. Anything you'd like to add, Leanne and Sam?
I don't think so from my side. Just to say, we're very keen to continue sort of working with you at the Digital Poverty Alliance, and yeah, looking forward to sort of working with you to share the toolkit as well and some of the other support resources available. And yeah, thank you very much for having us today.
It's been great to hear more about this product and actually how it's going to work and how people can get to use it. I think this will probably be a bit of an ongoing conversation, which I think is really positive because there's a lot probably to dive into for different people around how they can support different users. We do have a few bits of homework for our viewers today that don't necessarily relate to this call, to the one login piece. It is End Digital Poverty Day on the 12th of September, so we'd love you to get involved in that. We've just published yesterday our new comms and fundraising toolkit that sits alongside that. So you can see Jill has put a link in the chat where you can find out more information. We'd love you to think about what social media you might be able to do on the day, what events you might be able to do on the day, or indeed, if you're listening in from corporate, how you might be able to support the DPA in a variety of different ways using the 12th of September as a bit of a catalyst. There is also still time to submit to our inquiry into digital inclusion and health outcomes. Whether you have a 20-page magnus opus that you would like to put into that, or whether you've got a couple of lines that you would like to share around your own experience as a patient or a family member, we would really, really value your input. So there's still time to go to digitalpovertyalliance.org/health inquiry and share your views there and let us know whether you'd be happy to join an oral evidence session as well. We've also recently published some new policy briefs, so do take a look at those as well as our National Delivery and Advocacy Plan. Otherwise, all that remains is for me to thank Leanne and Sam again for taking time out to come and explain this new service to us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us online for actually a really lively set of questions. It's been really good to see so many people engaged in that. We will be sure to share the YouTube link so that you can watch this back and watch that formal presentation from Leanne with the slides and the information on there. And we will definitely be continuing to work with the team on how we can get that toolkit out to you, the helper's guide. And if there's other things that you think would be really, really helpful, do drop us an email at the DPA, hello@digitalpovertyalliance.org, and we will make absolutely sure that we feed that back to the team at DCIT. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day and do keep an eye for the next webinar.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Bye.